Hello, listeners. Welcome back. So, if you're following along, last week I announced that we have a new book coming out, and it's making its way to the virtual bookshelves and real life bookshelves. We Want You, an allyship guide for people with power. And so, what I promised to do as loyal allies listening, to give you a little sneak peek, a little behind the scenes of each chapter. And so over the next 9 weeks, so be your allyship study hall, office hours, if you will. It lends itself really nicely to a book club discussion because there's assessments and there's quick fact reviews, and there's even a downloadable workbook on the website. So you'll be sure to check that out at nextpivotpoint.com. So this week we're going to talk about chapter 1. And this is what landed in the research. So I spent over 50 hours researching experts, thought leaders, and senior leaders inside organizations. And overwhelmingly and quite alarmingly, what they told me is that people with power, people in senior leadership positions, people with social influence, people in the dominant group, did not understand DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we're actually a little bit afraid of it. So there was a study done, HBR reported this a few years ago, where 70% of white males did not think that DEI was for them. So it's a huge problem because the senior leadership teams are 70% white male, dominant group member. And many middle managers are as well. And so, as you look at the workplace, as you look at society, there's an overrepresentation of this demographic and an underrepresentation of historically marginalized groups, women, folks of color, disabilities, LGBTQ plus, et cetera. So we have quite a conundrum here. If the very people in positions of power do not understand or think that this is for them, we've got a huge disconnect. And so, how do we create really an invitation? This book is an invitation for folks with power to understand their power and to use it for good. It is not a bad thing. It is a very positive thing when we wield it for good. And what a chance to be an ally is to share your power with others. So, the first chapter is on fear, and there's three primary fears that bared out in my research and well-documented academic studies, studies by monster.com, et cetera, that I've referenced in this chapter. And what it found is that there are three kind of anxieties that hopeful allies, even allies, 90% of folks want to be better allies. That's data out of Cokewool, which is amazing research on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But the primary one is status threat. So my status, it's a zero-sum game. I lose, you win. Power actually doesn't work that way. It's an infinite game, as Simon Sinek would say. When we share power, our power actually grows, it expands, it's not diminished. When we hoard our power out of insecurity and fear, it actually can become smaller, and because we're seeing it as a threat, we're seeing it as a negative. So really kind of channeling that growth mindset to say, oh, power with, how do I use my power for good? How do I overcome this zero-sum game mentality? The second one is the fear of irrelevance. Brene Brown's found this time and time again in her research around shame and vulnerability, that people's biggest fear at work is being irrelevant. Losing your job, not being heard, not being seen, not feeling like you belong, that your voice matters. And so if we're rooting kind of for folks that are different from us, we can feel like, oh, I'm less relevant now. Women, folks of color, getting promoted, prioritizing the hiring process, which was never the intention of DEI, but countless times allies shared stories with me of, I'm a white man, I'm not going to get hired there. Their team already has enough white men. There's no way I'm going to get promoted there. That is zero-sum thinking at its finest, and that is just not the conditions of which we want to set for allyship. So really steering away from that DEI hire narrative, which was always false, but certainly lives in the minds of folks, a lingering effect of the last few years. And then all risk, no reward is the third fear. I've got so much to lose and nothing to gain. And that's our loss aversion. It's a natural, primitive state as human beings that we want to hold on to the things that we know to be certain and are keeping us alive and well. And we don't want to let go of it, right? We want to keep it. We might need it. And so just kind of overcoming that of like, what can I gain from being an ally is one of the most powerful things you can ask yourself and really ask others around you. So if you're passionate about this topic, if you've read a bunch of DEI books already, this is not the book for you. You're probably going to hear a lot of things you already know, which hopefully is validating and great. But you really need to think about, who do I need to hear this message? Who's a hopeful ally in my life that I know that they get it. They just don't like, they're not there yet. They're not really turning intention into action. They're still stumbling and bumbling. Like they just need a guide. And that's why I affectionately called this book a guide, because it's really meant to be kind of a companion, some material that speaks to you and you can talk back into with assessments and thought questions for each chapter. So think about who needs this content, who needs this book if you already know this well. So hopefully you've got a good preview on chapter one about turning, really reframing fear and really thinking about turning it into fuel as an ally. Because our fear can get in our way if we let it. But if we channel it for good, that positive adrenaline, that positive energy can really manifest in great allyship. I'll see you back next week. We're going to talk about power, sources of power in the second chapter. And if you're following along, go to nextpivotpoint.com. You can download a free workbook there and get access to some of the research behind the scenes. It's all up and available for you there, and you can purchase copies of the book. And even order bulk orders. So we're offering special pricing for 20 books or more for your organization. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.